You watch your carefully laid plans crumble, while others seem to effortlessly succeed, even when their strategies appear inferior to yours. Every setback feels like proof that you're destined to fail, while successful people around you act with an unshakable confidence that everything will work in their favor, regardless of circumstances. I am Niccolò Machiavelli, the Florentine strategist who discovered that fortune favors those who act as if victory is inevitable. During my years in diplomacy and political maneuvering, I learned that the most powerful weapon isn't cunning or resources. It's the unshakable belief that everything will ultimately work out in your favor. What I'm about to share will transform how you approach every challenge, setback, and opportunity in your life. The mindset principles I developed while navigating the treacherous world of Renaissance politics will show you how to act with such certainty that reality bends to match your expectations. Whether you're facing career obstacles or personal challenges, the same psychology that influenced princes and shaped kingdoms can reshape your entire destiny. But first, like this video, subscribe for more Machiavellian wisdom, and comment below where you're watching from. I want to know which corner of the world is ready to master the art of inevitable success. Let me tell you about the day I lost everything. November 7th, 1512. The date is burned into my memory like a brand. I stood in my office in the Palazzo Vecchio, holding the letter that stripped me of my position as secretary to the Second Chancery of the Republic of Florence. 14 years of loyal service dismissed with a few lines of cold bureaucratic prose. The Medici had returned to power, and I was considered a threat, a Republican sympathizer in a world that suddenly favored princes again. In that moment, I felt the ground shift beneath my feet. My income vanished, my influence evaporated, and my reputation crumbled like ancient parchment. But here's what I realized in those dark hours that followed. External circumstances had changed, but I remained the same man with the same mind and the same capacity for strategic thinking. The skills that had made me valuable to the Republic didn't disappear just because my title did. I was forced into exile at my small estate in Sant'Andrea in Percusina, 7 miles south of Florence. My friends avoided me, fearing guilt by association. Former colleagues pretended not to recognize me in the streets. I went from dining with ambassadors to sharing meals with farmers and innkeepers. Yet something remarkable happened during those first weeks of isolation. Stripped of external validation and political machinery, I began to understand a fundamental truth about power and success. They originate from within, not from circumstances. Every morning I would dress in my finest clothes, the same ceremonial robes I had worn to meet foreign dignitaries. My neighbors thought I had lost my mind, putting on court dress to supervise the cutting of wood or the cleaning of wells. But I understood something they didn't. How you carry yourself determines how the world responds to you. If I acted like a defeated man, I would become one. If I acted like a man whose setback was temporary, a strategic retreat rather than a permanent defeat, then I remained powerful regardless of my current circumstances. I began writing letters to my friend Francesco Vettori, who still held influence. In Rome, I didn't write as a supplicant begging for mercy, but as an equal offering valuable insights. I acted as if my exile was a choice rather than a punishment, a period of reflection that would make me more valuable, not less. When evening came, I would return to my study and transform myself again. I would change into the robes of ancient courts and enter into conversation with the great minds of antiquity. I conversed with the ancient men of old about politics, power, and human nature. This wasn't mere fantasy. This was strategic preparation. During this time, I conceived and began writing The Prince, not as the bitter complaints of a fallen man, but as the confident observations of someone who understood power from both its heights and depths. I wrote as if this work would someday change the world, because I believed it would. The letter that dismissed me should have broken me. Instead, it taught me the most valuable lesson of my life. When you act as if your current circumstances are temporary and your eventual success is inevitable. You begin to create the very conditions that make success possible. My exile wasn't the end of my story. It was the beginning of my greatest contribution to human understanding. And it all started the moment I decided to act as if everything would work out exactly as it should. In my years observing the powerful courts of Renaissance Italy, I noticed something peculiar about truly successful leaders. They possessed an almost supernatural confidence in their eventual success, even when facing seemingly impossible odds. Lorenzo de' Medici, the Magnificent, exemplified this perfectly. I watched Lorenzo negotiate with hostile city-states, his fingers adorned with rings that caught the light as he gestured with absolute certainty. He never spoke in terms of if we succeed, but always when we achieve our objectives. This wasn't mere arrogance. It was a sophisticated understanding of human psychology. You see, the human mind is remarkable in its ability to create reality from belief. When you act with genuine certainty about your success, several powerful psychological mechanisms activate simultaneously. Your brain begins to notice opportunities that were always present, but previously invisible to you. Your energy shifts in ways that others can sense and respond to positively. I discovered this principle firsthand during my diplomatic missions. When I entered negotiations believing in a positive outcome, I unconsciously carried myself differently. My voice had more authority, my arguments flowed more persuasively, and my counterparts responded with greater respect. They could sense my confidence, and it influenced their perception of my position's strength. The neurological basis for this phenomenon is fascinating. When you maintain genuine belief in your success, your brain's reticular activating system, the filter that determines what information reaches your conscious awareness, begins highlighting evidence that supports your expected outcome. You literally start seeing possibilities and connections that doubt would have kept hidden. Consider how Lorenzo handled the Pazzi conspiracy when assassins killed his brother Giuliano right beside him in the cathedral. Rather than flee Florence in fear, Lorenzo acted as if his survival and continued rule were inevitable. He walked calmly through the streets, showing himself to the people, acting as if the attack had only delayed, not threatened, his plans. This certainty became infectious. The citizens of Florence, seeing Lorenzo's unshakable confidence, rallied to his support. The conspiracy collapsed not because of superior force, but because Lorenzo's psychological certainty created a reality where his enemy's plans became impossible to execute effectively. During my own exile, I applied this same principle. Instead of wallowing in self-pity, I acted as if my temporary setback was simply preparation for greater influence. I continued studying, writing, and thinking as if I were still serving in government, because in my mind I was. I was preparing for my inevitable return to relevance. This psychological certainty works because it changes how you approach problems. When you believe success is inevitable, you don't waste energy on self-doubt or defensive thinking. Instead, you focus entirely on finding the path forward. Obstacles become puzzles to solve rather than evidence of impending failure. I observed this pattern repeatedly in successful merchants, military commanders, and political leaders. They shared a common trait. They acted as if positive outcomes were the natural result of their efforts. This wasn't naive optimism. They still prepared for difficulties and developed contingency plans. But their fundamental expectation was success. The most powerful aspect of psychological certainty is its compound effect. Each small success reinforces your confidence, which improves your performance, which creates more success. This upward spiral becomes self-sustaining, creating what appears to others as an almost magical ability to succeed consistently. When I wrote The Prince, I wrote with absolute confidence that it would eventually find its audience and change how people understood power. I didn't write it hoping someone might read it someday. I wrote it knowing it would become essential reading for anyone serious about leadership and strategy. Your psychology is your most potent weapon. Master the art of genuine certainty, and you'll discover that success isn't just possible, it becomes inevitable. Most people misunderstand Fortune completely. They see her as a capricious goddess who randomly distributes success and failure according to her whims. I learned the truth about Fortune through careful observation and personal experience. She is not random at all, but rather responsive to those who understand her nature. During my diplomatic years, I spent countless evenings in the courts where nobles played games of chance. I watched men lose fortunes on the turn of a card or the roll of dice, cursing Fortune for her fickleness. But I also noticed something they missed. Certain players seemed to win far more often than probability would suggest. These weren't cheaters. They were students of Fortune's true nature. They understood that Fortune favors those who act with boldness and decisiveness. She despises hesitation and rewards audacity. Most importantly, she responds to those who court her actively rather than waiting passively for her favor. I witnessed this principle dramatically during Cesare Borgia's campaigns in the Romagna. Cesare didn't wait for favorable conditions. He created them through bold action. When others saw obstacles, he saw opportunities for demonstrating his audacity. Fortune seemed to smile on him precisely because he refused to let circumstances dictate his choices. The key insight is this: Fortune is like a river that can be channeled and directed by those who understand her currents. When you act with certainty and boldness, you're not fighting against Fortune. You're aligning yourself with her fundamental nature. She gravitates toward those who demonstrate they deserve her favor through confident action. I learned this personally during my darkest period. After my dismissal, I could have retreated into bitterness, waiting for Fortune to smile on me again. Instead, I decided to court her actively. I continued my studies, maintained my correspondence with influential friends, and wrote as if my ideas would shape the future of political thought. This wasn't mere busy work. It was a deliberate strategy for attracting Fortune's attention. By acting as if my success was inevitable, I positioned myself to recognize and seize opportunities when they appeared. Fortune began to respond to my confidence rather than my circumstances. The ancient Romans understood this principle well. They knew that Fortune was not just luck, but the intersection of preparation and opportunity. The more boldly you prepare, the more opportunities Fortune provides. The more opportunities you seize, the more boldly Fortune rewards you. I've observed that people who consistently experience good luck share certain characteristics. They act decisively rather than deliberating endlessly. They view setbacks as temporary redirections rather than permanent defeats. Most importantly, they maintain an expectation of eventual success that influences every decision they make. Consider how this applies to your current situation. Are you waiting for Fortune to change your circumstances, or are you actively courting her through confident action? Are you positioning yourself as someone who deserves her favor, or are you acting like a victim of her supposed cruelty? Fortune is attracted to momentum. When you begin acting as if everything will work out in your favor, you create forward motion that Fortune can amplify. Each confident action creates ripple effects that generate new possibilities. These possibilities compound over time, creating what appears to others as extraordinary luck. During the writing of The Prince, I experienced this phenomenon repeatedly. Ideas seemed to flow effortlessly. Historical examples arranged themselves perfectly to support my arguments, and insights emerged with unusual clarity. This wasn't divine inspiration. It was Fortune responding to my absolute confidence in the value of my work. The secret is understanding that Fortune doesn't reward the deserving, she rewards the bold. She doesn't favor the patient, she favors the audacious. When you act with unshakable certainty in your eventual success, you're speaking Fortune's language. You're demonstrating that you understand her nature and deserve her partnership. This is why acting as if everything will work out is not naive optimism. It's sophisticated strategy. You're aligning yourself with the fundamental forces that govern success and failure. You're positioning yourself as fortune's natural ally rather than her victim. Remember, fortune helps those who act as if they don't need her help, but who court her favor through bold, confident action. Power is 90% perception and 10% reality. I learned this watching Cesare Borgia command rooms full of seasoned warriors and cunning politicians. Cesare understood something that most people miss. Appearing powerful actually creates power, while appearing weak destroys whatever real power you might possess. I remember the first time I saw Cesare enter a council meeting. He wore armor that gleamed like captured sunlight, his bearing suggesting that victory was not just possible, but inevitable. Before he spoke a single word, the entire room's energy shifted. Men who had been plotting against him suddenly found themselves reconsidering their positions. This wasn't theatrical manipulation, it was strategic psychology. Cesare knew that people respond to confidence and certainty before they evaluate actual capabilities. By projecting unshakable belief in his success, he influenced others to behave as if his success was indeed inevitable. The appearance of power works because it triggers fundamental human responses. When you enter any situation acting as if you belong there and expect positive outcomes, people instinctively treat you with greater respect. They unconsciously assume that your confidence is based on competence and resources, even when they don't know the details of your actual position. During my diplomatic missions, I applied this principle consistently. Even when representing Florence's interests from a position of relative weakness, I carried myself as if I held all the advantages. I spoke with the authority of someone whose proposals deserved serious consideration. This psychological positioning often achieved better results than the actual strength of my negotiating position would have suggested. The key is understanding that confidence creates a feedback loop. When you project certainty about your success, others respond more positively to your ideas and proposals. Their positive responses reinforce your confidence, which strengthens your projection of power, which generates even more positive responses. I observed this dynamic repeatedly in Renaissance courts. Minor nobles who carried themselves with royal bearing often received treatment befitting their projected status, rather than their actual rank. Meanwhile, legitimate heirs who doubted themselves found their authority constantly questioned and undermined. The appearance of power must be authentic, not merely cosmetic. You cannot simply dress well and speak boldly while harboring deep doubts about your capabilities. True projection of power comes from genuine belief in your eventual success, supported by consistent action that demonstrates your commitment to that outcome. When I was writing The Prince in Exile, I could have approached it as the desperate attempt of a fallen man trying to regain relevance. Instead, I wrote with the authority of someone providing essential wisdom to future leaders. I projected the confidence of an expert sharing valuable insights, not a supplicant begging for attention. This psychological approach influenced every aspect of how I crafted the work. My language was definitive rather than tentative. My examples were chosen to demonstrate authority rather than uncertainty. I wrote as if my insights were indispensable, because I genuinely believed they were. The appearance of power also requires consistency under pressure. Anyone can project confidence when things are going well, but true power shows itself when circumstances are challenging. During setbacks, maintaining your composure and certainty becomes even more important because others are watching to see if your confidence was genuine or superficial. I learned this during my interrogation and brief imprisonment after being accused of participating in an anti-Medici conspiracy. Despite the physical discomfort and uncertainty about my fate, I maintained the bearing of someone who expected to be vindicated. I spoke to my captors as if my innocence was obvious, and my eventual release inevitable. This psychological stance influenced how they treated me. Instead of viewing me as a defeated enemy, they began to see me as someone who might be useful in the future. My confidence in my eventual vindication created the very conditions that made that vindication possible. The appearance of power works because it shapes expectations, and expectations shape reality. When you consistently act as if positive outcomes are natural and inevitable, you create an environment where those outcomes become more likely to occur. People want to associate with winners, support successful ventures, and align themselves with rising forces. When you project authentic confidence in your success, you attract the very resources and opportunities that make that success achievable. Remember, others will treat you exactly as you expect to be treated, based on how you carry yourself and project your beliefs about your own worth and capabilities. There exists a crucial difference between the naive optimism of fools and the strategic optimism of successful leaders. Naive optimism ignores reality and hopes for the best without preparation. Strategic optimism acknowledges challenges while maintaining unshakable belief in eventual success, combined with meticulous planning and preparation. During my time advising the Florentine War Council, I witnessed both types of optimism in action. Naive optimists would charge into battles believing enthusiasm alone would guarantee victory. They ignored intelligence reports, dismissed strategic planning, and assumed their good intentions would somehow overcome superior enemy forces. These men usually died quickly. Strategic optimists, however, approached warfare with an entirely different mindset. They expected to win, but they prepared extensively for every possible scenario. They studied their enemies, secured supply lines, planned contingencies, and positioned their forces advantageously. Their optimism wasn't based on wishful thinking, it was founded on thorough preparation and intelligent strategy. I applied this principle when Florence faced the challenge of reducing the rebel stronghold of Pisa. Rather than simply hoping for success, I developed a comprehensive strategy that acknowledged the difficulties while maintaining absolute confidence in our eventual victory. I studied the terrain, analyzed Pisan weaknesses, and coordinated with our allies to create multiple pressure points. The key insight is that strategic optimism actually improves your performance because it focuses your energy on solutions rather than problems. When you genuinely believe that success is inevitable, your mind naturally seeks the path forward rather than dwelling on obstacles. This mental orientation dramatically increases your effectiveness. Strategic optimism also influences how you communicate with others. Instead of discussing all the reasons why something might fail, you focus conversations on how to achieve the desired outcome. This creates positive momentum among your team and allies, inspiring them to contribute their best efforts rather than hedging their bets. I observed this dynamic repeatedly in successful merchants throughout Italy. They would enter negotiations expecting favorable outcomes, but they came prepared with detailed knowledge of market conditions, alternative suppliers, and backup plans. Their optimism wasn't blind, it was informed and strategic. When writing The Prince, I employed strategic optimism by assuming the work would eventually find influential readers who could benefit from its insights. This wasn't mere hope. I crafted every chapter to provide genuine value to future leaders. I researched historical examples thoroughly, analyzed contemporary political situations carefully, and presented my conclusions with the confidence of someone offering indispensable wisdom. Strategic optimism requires a sophisticated understanding of probability and preparation. You maintain belief in positive outcomes while simultaneously preparing for various scenarios. This dual approach allows you to act with confidence while avoiding the disasters that destroy naive optimists. The psychological power of strategic optimism lies in its effect on decision-making. When you expect success but prepare thoroughly, You make better choices because you're not paralyzed by fear of failure or blinded by unrealistic expectations. You can evaluate options clearly while maintaining the energy and focus that confident expectation provides. During my diplomatic missions, I would enter negotiations expecting positive outcomes, but I always prepared extensively beforehand. I studied the other party's interests, developed multiple potential agreements, and understood my alternatives if negotiations failed. This preparation gave substance to my optimism and made my confidence appear well-founded to my counterparts. Strategic optimism also helps you persist through temporary setbacks because you understand they don't invalidate your ultimate goal. When naive optimists encounter obstacles, they often become discouraged and abandon their efforts. Strategic optimists view setbacks as valuable information that helps them adjust their approach while maintaining their fundamental expectation of success. The compound effect of strategic optimism over time is remarkable. Each successful outcome reinforces your confidence in the approach, which improves your preparation and performance in future endeavors. This creates an upward spiral of increasing effectiveness and success. Remember, strategic optimism isn't about ignoring reality. It's about choosing which aspects of reality to emphasize. While acknowledging challenges and preparing thoroughly, you maintain your fundamental belief that you will find a way to achieve your objectives. This mindset becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy as your confidence and preparation combine to create the very success you expected. The wise leader acts as if victory is certain while preparing as if defeat is possible. This paradox creates the perfect balance between confidence and competence that makes true success inevitable. The most remarkable discovery of my political career was understanding how small acts of confidence compound over time to create extraordinary results. Like interest accumulating in a merchant's account, each confident action builds upon previous ones, creating momentum that eventually becomes unstoppable. I began documenting this phenomenon during my early diplomatic assignments. I noticed that diplomats who consistently acted with quiet confidence, even in small matters, gradually earned greater respect and more significant responsibilities. Meanwhile, those who displayed uncertainty, even occasionally, found their influence diminishing over time. The compound effect works because confidence is observable and memorable. When you handle minor challenges with assurance, people take note. When you speak about future plans with certainty, others remember. When you maintain composure during setbacks, your reputation for reliability grows. These impressions accumulate, creating a personal brand of competence and trustworthiness. During my first mission to the court of Catherine Sforza, I was a relatively unknown secretary representing Florence's interests. Rather than approaching the negotiations apologetically or defensively, I carried myself as if I belonged in those halls of power. I spoke with the authority of someone whose proposals deserved serious consideration. This confident approach achieved more than just immediate diplomatic success. Catherine and her advisors remembered me as someone who commanded respect despite his modest official position. When future negotiations arose, they specifically requested my involvement. My early confidence had created a reputation that opened doors for increasingly important assignments. The psychological mechanism behind confidence compounding is fascinating. Each time you act with certainty and achieve a positive outcome, your brain reinforces the neural pathways associated with confident behavior. This makes confident responses more automatic and natural in future situations. You literally train yourself to expect success. I experienced this firsthand during my exile period, initially maintaining confidence while stripped of position and income required conscious effort. But as I consistently acted as if my setback was temporary, the behavior became more natural. Eventually, I genuinely believed that my exile was preparing me for greater contributions to political thought. This authentic confidence attracted opportunities I never could have forced. Francesco Vettori began including me in his correspondence about Roman politics. Other intellectuals sought my opinions on contemporary events. Publishers showed interest in my writings. My confidence had created a gravitational field that drew opportunities toward me. The compound effect accelerates as your reputation for confidence spreads. People begin describing you as someone who always seems to know what they're doing or never gets rattled by problems. These descriptions influence how others approach you, often giving you the benefit of the doubt in ambiguous situations. During the writing of The Prince, I applied this principle deliberately. Each chapter I completed with confidence made the next one easier to write. Each insight I recorded with certainty reinforced my belief in the work's ultimate value. The confidence compound effect helped me maintain momentum through the entire project. The beauty of confidence compounding is that it works regardless of your starting position. You don't need to begin with major achievements or impressive credentials. You simply need to consistently handle whatever responsibilities you currently have with confidence and competence. Others notice this pattern and gradually entrust you with greater opportunities. I observed this phenomenon repeatedly among successful merchants in Florence. Those who began as humble apprentices but consistently demonstrated confidence in their abilities eventually became wealthy traders. Their confidence compound effect attracted better customers, more favorable terms, and increasingly profitable ventures. The key is understanding that confidence must be backed by competence for the compound effect to work sustainably. Empty confidence eventually gets exposed and destroys your credibility. But genuine confidence, supported by real effort and gradual improvement, creates an unstoppable upward spiral. Small, confident actions create large, confident reputations. Large, confident reputations attract significant opportunities. Significant opportunities, handled with continued confidence, create extraordinary achievements. This is the mathematical certainty behind acting as if everything will work out, because confident action makes positive outcomes increasingly inevitable. During my career, I witnessed many people sabotage their own compound effect by occasionally displaying doubt or uncertainty in public. They would build momentum through confident behavior, then undermine it all with a single moment of visible self-doubt. Consistency is crucial for the compound effect to work. Remember that others are always watching and evaluating your responses to various situations. Every interaction is an opportunity to make a deposit in your confidence account. Over time, these deposits accumulate into a substantial reserve of credibility and reputation that opens doors you never knew existed. The compound effect of confidence transforms you from someone who hopes for success into someone who expects it and therefore creates it. The true test of leadership reveals itself not in moments of triumph, but in how one responds to failure and setbacks. I learned this lesson through bitter personal experience and careful observation of how princes handle adversity. The difference between those who recover from defeat and those who are destroyed by it lies entirely in their psychological response to temporary failure. When the Medici returned to power and I lost my position, I faced a choice that would define my future. I could accept defeat as permanent and retreat into obscurity, or I could treat this setback as a strategic repositioning that would ultimately strengthen my position. The decision I made in those first dark weeks of exile determined everything that followed. I chose to handle my downfall like a prince would handle a lost battle, not as evidence of permanent weakness, but as valuable intelligence about enemy tactics and my own vulnerabilities. True princes don't waste energy on self-pity or blame when plans fail. They immediately begin analyzing what went wrong and how to prevent similar failures in the future. During my interrogation for alleged involvement in an anti-Medici conspiracy, I observed how differently men responded to the same pressures. Some broke down completely, confessing to crimes they hadn't committed just to end their discomfort. Others maintain their dignity and composure, treating their captors with the respect due to temporary adversaries rather than permanent masters. Chose the latter approach. Despite the physical discomfort and uncertainty about my fate, I maintained the bearing of someone who expected justice to prevail. I spoke truthfully but without groveling, treated my interrogators professionally rather than personally, and never acted as if my situation was permanent. This psychological stance influenced how they perceived and treated me. Instead of seeing a broken enemy, they encountered someone who might be useful in the future. My refusal to act defeated made my actual defeat seem temporary and reversible. The key insight is that setbacks only become permanent when you accept them as such. When you maintain the mindset that current difficulties are temporary obstacles rather than final judgments, you preserve the psychological resources necessary for recovery. You continue looking for opportunities and preparing for your eventual return to influence. I applied this principle systematically during my exile. Rather than abandoning my studies of politics and human nature, I intensified them. I treated my forced retirement as an opportunity for deeper research and reflection that would make me more valuable when circumstances changed. I was preparing for my comeback before I even knew what form it would take. The compound effect of treating setbacks as temporary is remarkable. When you refuse to accept defeat as permanent, you maintain the energy and focus necessary for recovery. You continue building skills, maintaining relationships, and positioning yourself for future opportunities. Meanwhile, those who accept defeat often stop preparing altogether, ensuring their setbacks become permanent. During my diplomatic career, I observed this pattern repeatedly among political leaders. Those who recovered from defeats shared certain characteristics. They analyzed what went wrong without dwelling on it. They maintained their standards and dignity regardless of circumstances, and they continued preparing for future opportunities even when none were visible. Francesco Sforza exemplified this principle perfectly. When he lost Milan temporarily, he didn't retreat into permanent exile. He maintained his claim, built new alliances, and positioned himself for reconquest. His refusal to accept defeat as final made his eventual recovery possible. The psychological technique I developed involves reframing setbacks as intelligence gathering rather than punishment. When a diplomatic mission failed, I asked what the failure revealed about my counterparts' true interests and constraints. When political enemies gained temporary advantages, I studied their methods for future reference. This reframing transforms failure from an emotional blow into strategic information. Instead of feeling defeated, you feel educated. Instead of losing confidence, you gain insight. The setback becomes a step forward in your overall development, rather than a step backward in your progress. When writing The Prince, I drew extensively on my own failures and observations of others' defeats. These experiences provided the raw material for understanding how power actually works versus how people think it should work. My setbacks became the foundation for insights that have influenced leaders for 5 centuries. The crucial element is maintaining your fundamental identity and self-respect regardless of external circumstances. You are not your current position or temporary situation. You are your capabilities, knowledge, and potential for future contribution. These essential qualities remain intact even when external markers of success disappear. Princes understand that power is cyclical. Those who are up today may be down tomorrow, and vice versa. By maintaining your dignity and capabilities during downturns, you position yourself to benefit when the cycle inevitably turns in your favor. Remember that others are watching how you handle adversity. Your response to setbacks becomes part of your reputation and influences how people treat you when circumstances improve. Those who maintain grace under pressure earn respect that pays dividends when their fortunes change. The ultimate secret is understanding that setbacks are temporary by nature, but the character you display during setbacks becomes permanent. Choose to respond like a prince, and you'll discover that temporary defeats often become the foundation for permanent victories. One of the most critical discoveries of my political career was understanding how profoundly your inner circle influences your confidence and eventual success. The people you choose to surround yourself with either reinforce your belief in positive outcomes or gradually erode it through their doubts and negativity. During my years in the Florentine government, I carefully observed how different leaders selected their advisors and confidants. Successful princes invariably surrounded themselves with people who shared their vision and supported their confidence. Failed leaders, almost without exception, allowed pessimists and doubters into their inner circles where these negative voices slowly poisoned their decision-making. I learned this lesson personally during my exile. In the immediate aftermath of my dismissal, well-meaning friends urged me to accept my situation gracefully and abandon any hopes of returning to political relevance. They meant to protect me from further disappointment, but their advice would have ensured my permanent irrelevance. Instead, I consciously chose to maintain correspondence with individuals who believed in my eventual return to influence. Francesco Vittori, despite holding an important position in Rome, continued treating me as an intellectual equal whose insights had value. His letters reminded me that my temporary setback didn't diminish my fundamental capabilities. The psychological mechanism behind the inner circle principle is powerful. The people closest to you shape your daily thoughts through their reactions to your ideas and plans. If they consistently express doubt about your chances for success, their skepticism becomes internalized. You begin seeing obstacles they point out and missing opportunities they overlook. Conversely, when your inner circle shares your confidence in eventual success, their support reinforces your own belief. They notice possibilities you might miss, suggest resources you hadn't considered, and maintain optimism during moments when your own confidence wavers. Their faith becomes an external source of strength that supplements your internal conviction. I applied this principle systematically when building relationships throughout Italy. I sought out individuals who demonstrated confidence in their own endeavors and optimism about future possibilities. These people naturally supported my own ambitious goals because they understood the mindset required for significant achievement. Meanwhile, I gradually distanced myself from chronic complainers and perpetual pessimists. These individuals weren't necessarily evil or stupid, but their mental orientation made them poor allies for anyone seeking to create positive change. Their default response to new ideas was to explain why they wouldn't work rather than how they might succeed. The compound effect of your inner circle extends far beyond emotional support. Confident, optimistic people tend to know other confident, optimistic people. By associating with individuals who expect success, you gain access to networks of similarly minded people who can provide opportunities, resources, and collaborative partnerships. During my diplomatic missions, I noticed that successful ambassadors cultivated relationships with other successful diplomats, creating informal networks of mutual support and information sharing. These relationships often proved more valuable than formal alliances because they were based on personal trust and shared confidence in positive outcomes. The inner circle principle also applies to the information sources you choose to consume. Regularly, during my research for The Prince, I focused on studying successful leaders rather than dwelling on failures and defeats. This choice influenced my thinking by filling my mind with examples of effective strategies rather than cautionary tales of what not to do. When writing became my primary occupation, I sought relationships with other intellectuals who shared my belief in the power of ideas to influence the world. Our conversations reinforced my confidence that serious political philosophy could find an audience among practical leaders. Their enthusiasm supported my conviction that the Prince would eventually prove valuable. The key is being selective about whose opinions you allow to influence your thinking. Not everyone's perspective deserves equal weight in your decision-making process. Prioritize input from individuals who have achieved what you're trying to achieve, or who demonstrate the mindset necessary for significant accomplishment. This doesn't mean surrounding yourself with flatterers who agree with everything you say. True supporters challenge your thinking and help you improve your strategies, but they do so from a foundation of belief in your potential for success. They ask, "How can we make this better?" rather than, "Why won't this work?" During challenging periods, your inner circle becomes even more crucial. When external circumstances create doubt about your eventual success, the people closest to you either help you maintain perspective or amplify your fears. Choose individuals who help you see temporary setbacks as strategic repositioning rather than permanent defeat. The inner circle principle extends to romantic relationships as well. Partners who genuinely believe in your potential and support your ambitious goals become powerful allies in achieving them. Those who consistently express doubt about your plans or discourage your highest aspirations create constant internal conflict that undermines your effectiveness. Remember that confidence is contagious in both directions. Just as negative people can erode your optimism, your own confidence can inspire others to believe in their own possibilities. By maintaining high standards for your inner circle, you create a community of mutual support and shared success. People you choose to surround yourself with today are shaping the person you become tomorrow. Choose those who see your potential rather than your limitations, who celebrate your victories rather than minimize them, and who maintain faith in your eventual success even when circumstances appear challenging. The most counterintuitive principle I discovered in my study of power is that successful people consistently act beyond their current means and capabilities, then grow into their expanded vision of themselves. This isn't reckless overextension, it's strategic positioning that creates the very conditions necessary for advancement. During my observations of Renaissance merchants, I noticed a fascinating pattern. The traders who remained small always operated within their current resources, never risking more than they could comfortably afford to lose. Meanwhile, those who built trading empires consistently took calculated risks that required them to develop new capabilities and resources along the way. I watched Cosimo de' Medici transform his family from successful wool merchants into Europe's most powerful banking dynasty by consistently operating as if he already possessed the influence he sought to acquire. He negotiated with kings before he had kingly resources, built palaces before he had princely wealth, and patronized artists before he had established his cultural legacy. This wasn't mere pretense. Cosimo understood that acting beyond your current means forces rapid growth and development. When you commit to endeavors that require more than your present capabilities, you create pressure that accelerates learning and innovation. You have no choice but to become the person capable of fulfilling your commitments. I applied this principle during my diplomatic career by accepting assignments that stretched my existing knowledge and experience. Rather than declining missions that seemed beyond my qualifications, I accepted them and then rapidly developed the expertise necessary for success. Each challenging assignment forced me to grow beyond my previous limitations. The psychological mechanism behind this strategy is profound. When you act as if you already possess the capabilities you're working to develop, your brain begins identifying resources and opportunities that support this expanded identity. You start noticing possibilities that would have remained invisible if you maintained a smaller vision of yourself. During my exile, I applied this principle to my writing. Rather than positioning myself as a fallen bureaucrat, offering modest observations, I wrote with the authority of someone providing essential guidance to future leaders. I acted as if my insights were indispensable, then worked to ensure they actually were. This approach influenced every aspect of The Prince. I didn't write it, Hoping someone might find it interesting, I wrote it knowing it would become required reading for serious students of power. My confidence in the work's importance inspired me to invest the time and effort necessary to make it genuinely valuable. The key distinction is between reckless overextension and strategic expansion. Reckless overextension involves taking on commitments without developing the capabilities to fulfill them. Strategic expansion involves taking on commitments that force you to develop new capabilities while providing reasonable paths to success. I observed this principle repeatedly among successful military commanders. Those who achieved great victories consistently accepted challenges that required them to innovate and adapt beyond their previous methods. They didn't wait until they felt fully prepared. They acted with confidence in their ability to develop necessary skills. During the campaign, Francesco Sforza exemplified this approach when he transformed himself from a mercenary captain into the Duke of Milan. He didn't wait until he possessed ducal resources before acting with ducal authority. He projected the confidence and capability of a legitimate ruler, then worked tirelessly to develop the actual foundations that supported his elevated position. The compound effect of consistently acting beyond your means is remarkable. Each successful expansion of your capabilities increases your confidence in taking on even greater challenges. You develop a track record of growing into expanded roles, which makes future growth seem natural and achievable rather than impossible. This strategy also influences how others perceive and treat you. When you consistently operate above your apparent level, people begin to assume you possess hidden resources or capabilities they haven't recognized. This assumption often becomes self-fulfilling as others provide opportunities and support based on their elevated perception of your potential. During my correspondence with influential figures while in exile, I wrote as if I remained an active participant in political affairs rather than an isolated observer. This approach maintained my relevance in their minds and positioned me for opportunities that would have been impossible if I had written from a position of acknowledged defeat. The crucial element is ensuring that your expanded actions are supported by genuine effort and development. You can't simply pretend to be capable, you must actually become capable. The acting comes first, but the becoming must follow quickly to avoid exposure and failure. When building relationships, this principle suggests approaching potential mentors and collaborators as if you already deserve their attention rather than hoping they might notice you. Present yourself as someone whose association provides mutual benefit rather than someone seeking charity or assistance. The beauty of acting beyond your means is that it creates a virtuous cycle. Enhanced actions lead to enhanced results, which support enhanced confidence, which enables even more enhanced actions. Over time, what once seemed beyond your capabilities becomes your natural operating level. Remember that your current limitations are largely self-imposed based on your past experience. When you begin acting as if greater achievements are possible and natural, you often discover that the barriers you perceived were more psychological than real. Most people dramatically underestimate their capacity for growth and achievement. Words possess extraordinary power to shape reality, and nowhere is this more evident than in how successful people speak about their future. Throughout my career observing princes, merchants, and military leaders, I discovered that those who achieve great things share a distinctive linguistic pattern. They speak about their goals as inevitable outcomes rather than uncertain possibilities. When Lorenzo de' Medici discussed his plans for Florence's expansion, he never said, "if we can convince the other city-states to support us." Instead, he would say, "when we secure the alliance with Venice, or after we establish our trade monopoly in the East." This wasn't mere optimism. It was strategic psychology that influenced both his own thinking and the responses of others. The difference between if language and when language is profound. if language signals uncertainty and invites doubt from others. When language projects confidence and encourages others to align themselves with your seemingly inevitable success. People naturally want to position themselves advantageously in relation to future outcomes they perceive as certain. During my diplomatic missions, I learned to speak about Florence's interests as if their eventual protection was merely a matter of determining the most efficient path forward. Rather than saying, "We hope you'll consider supporting our position," I would say, "When you join our alliance, you'll benefit from these specific advantages." This linguistic shift often influenced negotiations in our favor. The psychological mechanism behind this phenomenon operates on multiple levels. When you speak about your goals using the language of inevitability, your brain begins treating them as established facts rather than uncertain hopes. This mental shift influences your decision-making, leading you to take actions consistent with your stated certainty. More importantly, others respond to your linguistic confidence by adjusting their own expectations and behaviors. When you speak as if your success is inevitable, people unconsciously begin treating you as someone whose success is indeed likely. They offer assistance, share opportunities, and position themselves to benefit from your anticipated achievements. Applied this principle systematically when writing The Prince. Rather than describing it as my attempt to create something valuable, I spoke about it as essential reading for anyone serious about understanding power. I discussed its future influence as an established fact, not a hoped-for possibility. This confidence influenced how I approached the writing and how others responded to the project. The language of inevitability must be authentic to be effective. You cannot simply change your words while harboring deep doubts about your chances. For success, the linguistic shift must reflect a genuine change in your expectations and mental approach to your goals. When this alignment occurs, the power of inevitable language becomes remarkable. During my observations of successful merchants, I noticed they discussed their business expansion plans using definitive language. They would say, "When we open our new trading post in Constantinople," rather than "if we can raise enough capital for expansion." This linguistic certainty helped them attract investors and partners who wanted to participate in seemingly inevitable success. The compound effect of inevitable language extends beyond immediate psychological impact. When you consistently speak about your goals as certain outcomes, you begin attracting people and resources that make those outcomes more likely. Your confidence becomes a magnet for the very elements necessary to transform your words into reality. The principle also applies to how you discuss setbacks and challenges. Instead of saying, "This problem might destroy our plans," successful people say, "This temporary obstacle will teach us valuable lessons," or, "When we overcome this challenge, we'll be stronger than before." They speak about recovery and success as inevitable, even during difficult periods. I maintained this linguistic discipline during my exile by speaking about my eventual return to political relevance as a matter of when, not if. In letters to friends, I discussed my current writing and thinking as preparation for future contributions to statecraft. This language helped maintain my own confidence and kept others aware of my continued ambitions. The language of inevitability becomes self-fulfilling because it influences both your behavior and others' responses to you. When you speak with genuine certainty about positive outcomes, you inspire confidence in yourself and others. This confidence creates the collaborative energy and persistent effort necessary to transform inevitable language into inevitable results. The key is understanding that your words shape your reality more than your reality shapes your words. When you begin speaking about your goals as inevitable outcomes, you create psychological pressure to make them actually inevitable. Your reputation becomes tied to achieving what you've confidently predicted. Master communicators throughout history have understood this principle. They spoke about their visions as certain futures that others could choose to join or miss. This approach attracted followers and resources while creating momentum that made their predictions increasingly likely to come true. When speaking about your own goals and plans, eliminate uncertainty language that invites doubt. Replace "I hope," "I think," "maybe," and "if" with "when," "I will," "after I," and "during my." This linguistic shift reflects and reinforces the confidence necessary for extraordinary achievement. Remember that people are influenced more by how you speak about your future than by your current circumstances. When you master the language of inevitability, you gain the power to influence both your own expectations and others' perceptions in ways that make your success genuinely inevitable. The most profound realization of my career came when I understood that what people call luck is actually the intersection of preparation, awareness, and bold action. Those who seem consistently fortunate aren't blessed by the gods. They've mastered the art of positioning themselves where favorable circumstances are most likely to emerge. During my diplomatic years, I observed this phenomenon repeatedly among successful negotiators. They would enter complex situations and somehow discover unexpected opportunities that others missed entirely. Initially, I attributed this to natural talent or divine favor. Eventually, I realized they were creating their own favorable circumstances through systematic preparation and heightened awareness. Francesco Guicciardini exemplified this principle during his diplomatic missions. Before entering any negotiation, he would thoroughly research not just the formal positions of all parties, but their personal interests, financial pressures, and political constraints. This preparation allowed him to recognize and exploit opportunities that appeared lucky to outside observers. The key insight is that opportunities exist constantly around us, but most people lack the preparation or awareness to recognize them when they appear. When you combine thorough preparation with confident expectation of success, you dramatically increase your ability to notice and seize favorable circumstances. I applied this principle during my exile by preparing extensively for opportunities that didn't yet exist. While writing The Prince, I researched contemporary political situations throughout Italy, maintained correspondence with active diplomats, and developed expertise that would prove valuable if circumstances changed. When opportunities for renewed influence eventually appeared, I was uniquely prepared to capitalize on them. The psychological component of luck creation involves maintaining what I call opportunity awareness, a mental state of constant readiness to recognize and act on favorable circumstances. This requires believing that positive opportunities will appear and training your mind to notice them when they do. Most people miss opportunities because they're focused on obstacles rather than possibilities. They enter situations expecting difficulties and therefore notice primarily the things that could go wrong. Meanwhile, those who create their own luck enter the same situations expecting favorable developments and therefore notice possibilities others overlook. During my observation of Venetian merchants, I discovered they consistently found profitable trading opportunities in circumstances that seemed unpromising to others. They achieved this by combining extensive market research with optimistic expectation that profitable deals existed in every situation. Their luck was actually superior preparation meeting confident awareness. The compound effect of luck creation is remarkable. Each favorable outcome increases your confidence in finding future opportunities, which improves your preparation and awareness, which leads to even more favorable outcomes. Over time, you develop a reputation for being lucky, which actually attracts more opportunities because people want to associate with consistently successful individuals. I experienced this personally when my reputation for insightful analysis attracted invitations to contribute to political discussions. My careful preparation during exile positioned me to offer valuable perspectives that others couldn't provide. What appeared to be fortunate timing was actually the result of systematic readiness, meeting unexpected opportunity. The principle also involves understanding timing and positioning. Lucky people don't just recognize opportunities, they position themselves where opportunities are most likely to appear. They build relationships with influential people, develop expertise in growing fields, and maintain visibility in their areas of interest. When I wrote The Prince, I positioned it to address timeless questions about power while drawing on contemporary examples that made it immediately relevant. This positioning allowed the work to benefit from both short-term interest in current events and long-term demand for fundamental insights about leadership. Creating your own luck requires accepting that favorable circumstances often come disguised as problems or challenges. What appears to be bad luck frequently contains the seeds of extraordinary opportunity for those prepared to recognize and cultivate them. My own exile, initially devastating, became the foundation for my most enduring contribution to political thought. The practice involves developing what I call strategic paranoia, constantly scanning your environment for emerging opportunities while preparing for various scenarios. This isn't anxious worry, but rather confident vigilance that assumes favorable circumstances will appear and ensures you're ready to act when they do. Successful military commanders understand this principle intuitively. They don't wait for perfect conditions before engaging the enemy. Instead, they create favorable conditions through strategic positioning, careful timing, and bold action. Their victories appear lucky to outsiders, but result from systematic preparation and confident execution. The key to consistent luck creation is understanding that opportunities have expiration dates. When favorable circumstances appear, you must act quickly and decisively. Hesitation allows opportunities to pass to others who are more prepared to seize them immediately. Remember that luck is a skill that can be developed through practice. Begin by preparing more thoroughly for important endeavors, maintaining optimistic awareness of possibilities, and acting boldly when opportunities appear. Over time, your increasing luck will attract even more favorable circumstances, creating an upward spiral of apparent good fortune. The most successful people I've observed don't wait for luck to find them. They actively create conditions where favorable outcomes become increasingly likely. They understand that consistent preparation, confident expectation, and bold action transform what others call luck into what they know is strategic success. One of the most powerful discoveries of my career was understanding how confidence attracts other confident people, creating networks of mutual support that amplify everyone's individual success. Confident people naturally gravitate toward others who share their optimistic expectations and bold approaches to challenges. During my diplomatic years, I noticed that successful ambassadors, merchants, and military leaders tended to know and support each other across political boundaries. Despite representing competing interests, they maintained relationships based on mutual respect for each other's competence and confidence. These informal networks often proved more valuable than formal alliances. The psychological basis for this phenomenon is straightforward. Confident people enjoy associating with others who share their positive energy and ambitious outlook. Conversations with fellow optimists are energizing and productive, while interactions with chronic doubters are draining and discouraging. Successful people instinctively seek relationships that reinforce rather than undermine their effectiveness. Experienced this personally when Francesco Vittori continued treating me as an intellectual equal despite my political exile. His confidence in my eventual return to relevance helped maintain my own optimism during difficult periods. More importantly, his ongoing correspondence kept me connected to current political developments and positioned me for future opportunities. The compound effect of confident networks is extraordinary. When multiple confident individuals share information, opportunities, and resources, each person's individual capabilities are amplified by the group's collective power. Projects that would be impossible for any single person become achievable. Through coordinated effort among confident collaborators, I observed this dynamic repeatedly among the Medici banking network. Cosimo surrounded himself with confident merchants, skilled artisans, and ambitious intellectuals who shared his vision for Florence's prominence. This network enabled achievements that far exceeded what any individual could have accomplished alone, including architectural projects, artistic patronage, and political influence that shaped an entire era. The key insight is that your network becomes an extension of your personal capabilities. When you associate with confident, successful people, you gain access to their knowledge, resources, and opportunities. Your individual confidence is reinforced and amplified by the collective confidence of your network. Building such networks requires projecting the confidence that attracts other confident people. You cannot approach successful individuals as a supplicant seeking help. You must engage them as an equal offering mutual value. This requires genuinely believing that you have something worthwhile to contribute to their endeavors. During my exile, I maintained relationships with influential figures by continuing to offer valuable insights about political developments. Rather than approaching them as someone seeking assistance, I positioned myself as someone providing analysis they couldn't obtain elsewhere. This approach preserved my standing within networks that would prove crucial for future opportunities. The network effect operates across multiple dimensions simultaneously. Confident people share not just material resources, but psychological support, strategic insights, and collaborative opportunities. They celebrate each other's successes rather than feeling threatened by them, creating an environment where everyone's achievements are amplified. I witnessed this principle dramatically during the formation of the League of Cambrai, where multiple powers coordinated their efforts against Venice. Despite their individual ambitions and competing interests, the League's members supported each other's confidence and maintained unity of purpose. Their collective confidence enabled them to challenge the most powerful city-state in Italy. Modern application of this principle involves consciously cultivating relationships with people who share your optimistic outlook and ambitious goals. This doesn't mean avoiding all challenges or criticism, but rather prioritizing associations with individuals who approach difficulties as solvable problems rather than insurmountable obstacles. Confident networks also provide crucial support during setbacks and failures. When individual confidence wavers, the collective confidence of the network helps maintain perspective and motivation. Your temporary doubts are balanced by others. Continued belief in your capabilities and eventual success. The reciprocal nature of confident networks creates obligations as well as benefits. You must be prepared to offer the same support and encouragement to others that you receive from them. This mutual reinforcement strengthens the entire network and ensures its long-term sustainability. I applied this principle when developing relationships with other intellectuals and writers during my later years. We shared ideas, provided feedback on each other's work, and celebrated collective achievements in advancing political and philosophical understanding. This network amplified each individual's impact far beyond what any of us could have achieved. In isolation, the quality of your network matters more than its size. A small group of genuinely confident, mutually supportive individuals provides more value than a large collection of casual acquaintances. Deep relationships with fellow optimists create stronger foundations for collaborative success than superficial connections with numerous people. Building confident networks requires patience and genuine investment in others' success. You cannot extract value without contributing value. The most powerful networks emerge when confident individuals genuinely care about each other's advancement and actively work to create mutual opportunities. Remember that confidence is contagious in both directions. Just as confident people reinforce your optimism, Your own confidence can inspire and elevate others. By consciously building networks of mutual confidence, you create powerful alliances that make extraordinary achievements not just possible, but inevitable. The network effect transforms individual confidence into collective power, multiplying your capabilities and creating opportunities that would never exist in isolation. When confident people unite around shared visions, they become nearly unstoppable forces for positive change. Nothing tests your commitment to confident action more severely than encountering people who actively predict your failure. Throughout my career, I faced countless individuals who doubted my capabilities, questioned my judgment, and openly expressed skepticism about my chances for success. Learning to maintain confidence despite their opposition became one of my most valuable skills. The first lesson I learned about dealing with doubters came during my early diplomatic assignments. Senior officials who felt threatened by my rapid advancement would openly question my qualifications and predict my failure in front of colleagues. Initially, their criticism shook my confidence and made me second-guess my abilities. Then I realized something crucial. Their doubt often revealed more about their own insecurities than about my actual capabilities. People who consistently predict others' failures are usually projecting their own fears and limitations. They cannot imagine success because they haven't achieved it themselves, so they assume it's impossible for others as well. During my political exile, the doubters multiplied dramatically. Former colleagues wrote me off as permanently irrelevant. Political enemies celebrated my downfall as final and complete. Even well-meaning friends urged me to accept my diminished circumstances and abandon any hopes of returning to influence. Made a strategic decision to treat their doubt as motivation rather than discouragement. Every person who predicted my permanent failure became a challenge to prove wrong. Their skepticism became fuel for my determination to demonstrate that my setback was temporary and my eventual success was inevitable. The psychological key to overcoming doubters is understanding that their opinions cannot actually prevent your success unless you internalize their negativity. External doubt only becomes dangerous when it transforms into internal doubt. As long as you maintain genuine confidence in your eventual success, doubters become irrelevant obstacles rather than insurmountable barriers. I observed this principle repeatedly among successful military commanders, those who achieved great victories often faced intense skepticism from their own officers and soldiers before proving their strategies correct. The commanders who succeeded were those who maintained confidence in their plans, despite widespread doubt about their feasibility. Cesare Borgia exemplified this approach when he conquered the Romagna, despite universal predictions that his campaign would fail. Critics pointed to his youth, his limited resources, and the strength of his enemies. Rather than being discouraged by their doubt, Cesare used it as evidence that his enemies underestimated him, a strategic advantage he exploited ruthlessly. The compound effect of overcoming doubters is remarkable. Each time you succeed despite their predictions of failure, your confidence grows stronger and their credibility diminishes. Eventually, you develop immunity to external skepticism because you have proven repeatedly that doubters are poor predictors of your actual capabilities. Converting doubters into believers becomes a powerful source of validation and support. When people who initially predicted your failure witness your success, they often become some of your strongest advocates. Their conversion carries special weight because they cannot be accused of blind optimism. They were convinced by evidence rather than faith. I experienced this personally when the prince began gaining recognition among political leaders. Critics who had dismissed me as a fallen bureaucrat with nothing valuable to offer gradually acknowledged the work's insights and practical value. Their reluctant approval carried more weight than praise from natural supporters. The strategy for dealing with doubters involves neither argument nor anger, but rather consistent demonstration of competence and progress. Don't waste energy trying to convince skeptics through words. Convince them through results. Let your achievements speak louder than their doubts. When facing organized opposition to your goals, remember that intense resistance often indicates you're pursuing something genuinely significant. If your ambitions weren't threatening to those who benefit from the status quo, they wouldn't bother trying to discourage you. Their opposition can be a sign that you're on the right path. The key is maintaining what I call selective listening carefully, choosing whose opinions deserve your attention and whose can be safely ignored. Prioritize feedback from people who have achieved what you're trying to achieve or who demonstrate the competence to evaluate your strategies objectively. During my later career, I learned to distinguish between constructive criticism from qualified sources and destructive doubt from threatened parties. Constructive criticism helped me improve my approaches and avoid genuine mistakes. Destructive doubt was simply noise that could be ignored without consequence. The most dangerous doubters are often those closest to you, family members, friends, and colleagues who claim to be protecting you from disappointment. Their doubt feels more personal and can be harder to dismiss because it seems to come from love rather than malice, yet their well-intentioned skepticism can be more damaging than open hostility because it's harder to recognize and resist. I learned to respond to close doubters with appreciation for their concern while maintaining firm boundaries around my confidence and ambitions. I would acknowledge their care while explaining that their protection wasn't necessary because I was prepared to handle whatever challenges arose from pursuing my goals. The ultimate test of your confidence comes when facing universal doubt, when virtually everyone around you predicts your failure. These moments separate those who possess genuine confidence from those who rely on external validation. True confidence doesn't require anyone else's agreement or approval to remain intact. During the darkest period of my exile, when it seemed that everyone had written me off as permanently irrelevant, I discovered the power of standing alone in my conviction. My solitary confidence in my eventual return to influence became the foundation for everything that followed. The doubt of others became irrelevant because my own belief was unshakable. Remember that doubters often become your most powerful advocates once you prove them wrong. Their conversion from skepticism to support creates compelling evidence of your capabilities that influences others who might be wavering in their assessment of your potential. The key to overcoming doubters is understanding that their opinions reflect their limitations, not yours. When you maintain authentic confidence despite widespread skepticism, you demonstrate a strength of character that ultimately commands respect, even from those who initially doubted you most severely. The art of timing and bold action is perhaps the most misunderstood aspect of successful leadership. Most people wait for perfect conditions before making important moves, not realizing that perfect conditions rarely exist, and that confidence itself creates favorable timing more effectively than careful calculation. During my military advisory years, I observed a crucial distinction between commanders who achieved great victories and those who achieved modest ones. The great commanders acted boldly when they sensed opportunity, even when conditions seemed less than ideal. The modest commanders waited for perfect circumstances and often found that opportunities had passed to bolder competitors. Francesco Sforza demonstrated this principle magnificently when he seized control of Milan. The circumstances were far from perfect. The city was in chaos. Multiple claimants existed, and powerful enemies surrounded him. Yet Sforza recognized that chaotic conditions often provide the best opportunities for decisive action because everyone else is paralyzed by uncertainty. The key insight is that confident action itself improves timing by creating momentum and forcing others to respond to your initiative rather than allowing them to maintain their preferred positions. When you act boldly while others hesitate, you gain the advantage of choosing the battlefield and setting the pace of events. I applied this principle during my diplomatic career by making proposals at moments when conventional wisdom suggested waiting for better conditions. Often, these seemingly premature initiatives succeeded precisely because they caught opponents unprepared and forced rapid decisions that favored our position. The psychological component of timing involves understanding that readiness is more about mental state than external circumstances. You're ready to act when you possess sufficient confidence and preparation, not when all variables align perfectly in your favor. Perfect alignment rarely occurs, so waiting for it ensures permanent inaction. During my exile, I could have waited years for ideal conditions before beginning The Prince. Instead, I recognized that my current isolation actually provided perfect circumstances for deep thinking and writing, even though my political position was at its lowest point. The timing seemed wrong to everyone else, but it was actually perfect. For my purposes, bold action creates its own favorable timing through several mechanisms. First, it demonstrates confidence that influences others' perceptions of your capabilities. Second, it forces events to unfold at your preferred pace, rather than allowing circumstances to deteriorate through inaction. Third, it positions you to benefit from unexpected developments that favor the bold. The compound effect of well-timed bold action is extraordinary. Each successful initiative at an unexpected moment builds your reputation for excellent judgment and decisive leadership. People begin expecting you to recognize opportunities they miss and to act effectively when others remain paralyzed by uncertainty. Witnessed this pattern repeatedly among successful merchants who built trading empires by recognizing and acting on opportunities that others missed or deemed premature. They understood that markets reward those who move first with confidence rather than those who wait for unanimous agreement about favorable conditions. The principle also applies to personal relationships and career advancement. The people who build powerful networks and achieve rapid promotion are often those who approach influential individuals at moments when conventional wisdom suggests waiting for better introductions or more impressive credentials. When I maintained correspondence with Francesco Vittori during my exile, many people would have advised waiting until my position improved before reaching out to someone in his elevated circumstances. Instead, I wrote immediately and consistently, treating him as an intellectual equal despite my temporary political isolation. This bold approach maintained relationships that proved crucial for my eventual return to relevance. The art of timing involves developing sensitivity to moments when bold action will be most effective. These moments often occur during transitions, crises, or periods when established patterns are disrupted. Confident leaders recognize these windows and act decisively. While others are still analyzing the situation, the key is distinguishing between prudent caution and paralyzing hesitation. Prudent caution involves gathering sufficient information to make informed decisions and preparing adequately for likely challenges. Paralyzing hesitation involves endless analysis that prevents action, even when sufficient information exists. For confident decision-making, successful timing also requires accepting that some bold actions will fail despite excellent judgment and preparation. The goal isn't perfect success in every initiative, but rather positioning yourself to benefit from the compound effect of mostly successful, bold actions over time. Occasional failures become learning experiences that improve future timing. The most important aspect of timing is understanding that waiting for certainty ensures missing the best opportunities. The moments when bold action is most effective are precisely those moments when outcomes remain uncertain, but potential rewards justify confident action. Certainty comes after the opportunity has passed. Remember that your confidence in taking bold action at unexpected moments often creates the very conditions that make your timing appear perfect in retrospect. What seems like excellent timing to outside observers is usually the result of confident action that shaped circumstances, rather than passive waiting for ideal conditions to emerge naturally. The most profound realization of my later years was understanding that unshakable belief creates legacies that outlive temporary circumstances and personal mortality. When you maintain absolute confidence in your contribution's lasting value, you create work and relationships that continue influencing the world long after your direct involvement ends. During my final years, I reflected extensively on leaders whose influence transcended their lifetimes versus those who were quickly forgotten after their deaths. The distinction wasn't based on the scope of their immediate power or the circumstances of their success, but rather on the depth of their belief in the permanent value of their contributions. Julius Caesar exemplified this principle perfectly. Even when facing assassination, he maintained absolute confidence that his reforms and vision for Rome would outlive his enemy's temporary victory. His unshakable belief in his mission's importance inspired followers who continued implementing his vision long after his death, ensuring his influence extended far beyond his physical presence. The key insight is that belief in your work's lasting significance influences how you approach every aspect of your endeavors. When you genuinely believe your contributions will matter centuries from now, you invest the time and effort necessary to ensure they actually will. This long-term perspective elevates the quality and impact of everything you create. I applied this principle systematically when writing The Prince. Rather than crafting a work that addressed only contemporary political situations, I focused on timeless principles of power and human nature that would remain relevant regardless of changing circumstances. My confidence in the work's enduring value inspired me to pursue insights that transcended immediate relevance. The psychological power of legacy thinking transforms your relationship with setbacks and opposition. When you believe your contributions will ultimately prove their worth, temporary defeats become irrelevant. Critics and enemies can delay your recognition, but cannot prevent your eventual vindication if your belief is grounded in genuine value. This perspective sustained me through the darkest periods of my exile. While others saw my political career as permanently ended, I maintained confidence that my ideas about statecraft would eventually find their audience and prove their worth. This belief enabled me to continue developing and refining my insights rather than abandoning them in despair. The compound effect of legacy-minded thinking is extraordinary. When you approach your work with genuine confidence in its lasting importance, you attract collaborators and supporters who share your long-term vision. People want to contribute to endeavors they believe will stand the test of time, rather than pursuing projects they see as temporarily expedient. I observed this dynamic repeatedly among Renaissance artists and architects who created works that continue inspiring people centuries later. Their unshakable belief in beauty and excellence influenced every detail of their creations, resulting in achievements that transcend their historical period and speak to universal human experiences. This principle applies equally to relationships and influence on other people. When you interact with others from a foundation of genuine care for their long-term development, rather than immediate utility, you create bonds that endure far beyond changing circumstances. Your investment in their growth becomes part of your lasting legacy. During my diplomatic career, I developed relationships based on mutual respect and genuine interest in others' success rather than purely transactional exchanges. Many of these relationships continued throughout my life and influenced how people remembered and valued my contributions to political thought. Legacy thinking also influences how you handle criticism and opposition. When you're confident that history will vindicate your contributions, contemporary critics lose their power to discourage or deflect you from your mission. Their opinions become temporarily irrelevant because you're working for a larger audience across time. The most important aspect of legacy-minded confidence is ensuring that your belief is grounded in genuine value rather than mere ego. Unshakable belief must be supported by real excellence and authentic contribution to human understanding or welfare. Delusional confidence in mediocre work creates no lasting legacy. This requires honest self-assessment combined with ambitious vision. You must accurately evaluate your capabilities while maintaining confidence in your potential for significant contribution. The goal is neither false modesty nor inflated self-importance, but rather realistic appreciation of your ability to create lasting value. When I assessed my political writings, I tried to evaluate them objectively while maintaining confidence in their potential importance. This balanced approach allowed me to improve weak areas while preserving the conviction necessary for sustained effort on challenging projects. The ultimate test of legacy-minded thinking comes when facing your own mortality. If you've maintained genuine confidence in your contributions' lasting value, the prospect of death loses its power to create panic or regret. Your work becomes larger than your physical presence, ensuring a form of immortality through continued influence. The most successful people I've observed share this long-term perspective on their contributions. They work not just for immediate success, but for the satisfaction of creating something that will continue mattering long after they're gone. This vision sustains them through temporary setbacks and inspires their highest quality efforts. Remember that unshakable belief in your legacy potential becomes self-fulfilling when supported by genuine excellence and persistent effort. When you truly believe your contributions will outlive your circumstances, you create the very conditions that make such lasting influence possible. The principles I discovered in Renaissance Italy apply with remarkable precision to today's world, though the specific tactics and technologies have evolved dramatically. The fundamental truth remains unchanged. Those who act with genuine confidence in their eventual success create the very conditions that make that success inevitable. In today's business environment, I observe the same patterns I witnessed among Florentine merchants 5 centuries ago. Entrepreneurs who project authentic confidence in their vision attract investors, customers, and talented employees who want to participate in seemingly inevitable success. Meanwhile, those who communicate uncertainty about their prospects struggle to gain support even when their actual capabilities are superior. The modern equivalent of my diplomatic correspondence is the strategic use of professional networks and social media presence. Today's most successful leaders maintain visibility and influence through consistent communication that projects confidence and competence. They share insights and engage with their professional communities as if their continued relevance is obvious and natural. Contemporary examples abound of leaders who have applied these timeless principles with extraordinary results. Technology entrepreneurs routinely act beyond their current means, projecting confidence in revolutionary outcomes while simultaneously building the capabilities necessary to achieve them. Their bold vision attracts resources and talent that transform ambitious predictions into remarkable realities. The acceleration of modern communication makes the compound effect of confidence more powerful than ever. Word of your competence and reliability spreads instantly through digital networks, creating opportunities at unprecedented speed. Conversely, any display of uncertainty or incompetence can damage your reputation globally within hours. In today's knowledge economy, the principle of acting as if everything works out becomes even more crucial because success depends heavily on others' willingness to collaborate with you. People naturally gravitate toward confident leaders who project optimism about shared endeavors. Your psychological approach to challenges often matters more than your technical qualifications. The modern application of strategic optimism involves maintaining confidence in positive outcomes while using data analytics and market research to refine your strategies continuously. Today's tools provide information that Renaissance leaders could never access, but the fundamental approach remains identical. Expect success while preparing thoroughly for various scenarios. Social media platforms have created new opportunities for projecting the appearance of power and building confident networks. However, the underlying principle remains unchanged. Authentic confidence based on real competence creates sustainable influence, while superficial image management without substance eventually gets exposed and backfires. The language of inevitability becomes even more powerful in our interconnected world. When you consistently speak about your goals as certain outcomes rather than uncertain possibilities, your words reach audiences far beyond your immediate circle. This expanded reach amplifies the psychological impact of confident communication. Modern professionals can create their own luck more systematically than ever before through strategic networking, continuous learning, and global awareness of emerging opportunities. The Internet provides unprecedented access to information and connections that previous generations could never imagine, making preparation and positioning more effective than ever. The inner circle principle applies directly to modern team building and leadership development. Successful modern leaders consciously surround themselves with optimistic, capable individuals who reinforce each other's confidence and collaborate effectively toward shared goals. They understand that their immediate environment shapes their psychology and performance. Digital communication allows for more sophisticated application of confidence-building strategies. Modern leaders can maintain relationships across vast distances, share insights globally, and build reputations that transcend geographical limitations. The principles I developed for managing correspondence now apply to email, video conferencing, and professional platforms. The network effect of confidence operates at global scale in today's interconnected economy. Confident professionals can build international networks of mutual support that amplify individual capabilities far beyond what was possible in Renaissance Italy. These digital relationships create opportunities for collaboration and resource sharing across industries and continents. Modern application also requires adapting to faster pace of change and shorter attention spans. The confidence-building strategies that once developed over years now must demonstrate value within months or weeks. However, the fundamental psychological principles remain constant. Authentic confidence still attracts support and creates opportunities. The key insight for modern practitioners is understanding that external technologies and tactics change constantly, but internal psychology and human nature remain remarkably consistent. The confidence, preparation, and bold action that created success in Renaissance Italy still create success in contemporary markets. Today's leaders who master these timeless principles while adapting them to modern tools and circumstances achieve extraordinary results. They understand that successful leadership depends more on psychological mastery than technological sophistication, more on confident execution than perfect planning. The most important modern application involves recognizing that these principles work regardless of your industry, position, or background. Whether you're building a technology startup, advancing in corporate hierarchy, or developing artistic skills, the psychology of acting as if everything works out creates the same powerful results it has created for centuries. Remember that while the world has changed dramatically since my time, human psychology and the fundamental dynamics of success remain constant. Master these timeless principles while embracing modern tools, and you'll discover that confident action creates favorable outcomes just as reliably today as it did 500 years ago. My friend, we have reached the end of our journey together. But for you, this is truly the beginning. Everything I have shared with you, every principle, every insight, every hard-won lesson from my years in the corridors of power, now becomes yours to apply and transform into your own inevitable success. The moment you choose to act as if everything will work out in your favor. You align yourself with forces that have shaped human achievement for millennia. You join the ranks of those who understand that confidence isn't just a feeling, it's a strategic weapon that creates the very reality it envisions. I want you to understand something profound. Your success is not a matter of if, but when. The principles you now possess have been tested in the crucible of political intrigue, military campaigns, diplomatic negotiations, and personal adversity. They have proven themselves reliable guides to achievement across centuries and cultures. When you project authentic confidence in your eventual success, you trigger psychological and social mechanisms that operate as predictably as natural laws. Others will begin treating you as someone whose achievements are inevitable. Opportunities will appear that were always present but previously invisible. Resources will become available that seemed permanently out of reach. Your commitment to these principles must be absolute and unwavering. There will be moments when doubt creeps in, when setbacks tempt you to abandon confidence for the apparent safety of modest expectations. In these moments, remember my own experience during the darkest days of exile, when maintaining belief in my eventual return to relevance seemed absurd to everyone around me. The compound effect of confident action will transform your life gradually, then suddenly. Each small act of certainty builds upon previous ones, creating momentum that eventually becomes unstoppable. Others will marvel at your apparent luck, not realizing they're witnessing the mathematical result of systematic confidence applied. Consistently over time. Begin immediately. Don't wait for perfect conditions or complete preparation. Act today as if your success is certain, while simultaneously working to make it actually certain. Speak about your goals using the language of inevitability. Surround yourself with people who reinforce your optimism rather than feeding your doubts. When you encounter setbacks, and you will, handle them like the prince or princess you are becoming. View them as temporary obstacles that provide valuable intelligence rather than permanent defeats that define your limitations. Maintain your dignity and composure while others lose theirs. Continue preparing for your inevitable comeback. Build networks of confident, ambitious people who share your belief in positive outcomes. These relationships will amplify your individual capabilities and provide support during challenging periods. Remember that confidence is contagious. Your unshakable belief in success will inspire others to achieve more than they thought possible. Create your own luck through systematic preparation, combined with bold action. Position yourself where opportunities are most likely to appear, then act decisively when they do. Understand that favorable circumstances rarely announce themselves clearly. They must be recognized and seized by those prepared to see them. Most importantly, think beyond immediate success to lasting legacy. Work not just for temporary achievement, but for contributions that will continue mattering long after your direct involvement ends. This long-term perspective will elevate the quality of everything you create and sustain you through temporary disappointments. The world needs confident, capable leaders who act as if positive change is not just possible, but inevitable. Your success serves purposes larger than personal advancement. It demonstrates to others that ambitious goals are achievable and inspires them to pursue their own highest potential. I have given you the keys to inevitable success. These are not theories or hopes, but proven principles that have created extraordinary achievements throughout history. Your responsibility now is to apply them with the same confidence and persistence that transformed my exile into my greatest contribution to human understanding. Act as if everything will work out in your favor, because when you master these principles, everything actually will. Your victory is not just possible, it is inevitable. The only question remaining is how magnificent you will allow that victory to become. Go now and claim the success that already belongs to you. The world is waiting for what only you can contribute, and you now possess everything necessary to Deliver it with absolute confidence and lasting impact. Your inevitable victory begins the moment you decide it does. That moment is now.